I have a confession to make. I was wrong. In my last video, I looked you in the eye and told you that silver would hit $75 by mid-2026. I laid out the math, I showed you the supply crunch, I gave you the roadmap. But I made a critical error. It didn't take 6 months. It took 2 weeks. Right now, the price of silver just smashed through $75. The timeline has collapsed. The future just walked through the front door. And while the rest of YouTube is celebrating, I want to do something different today. I don't want to just take a victory lap. I want to take you behind the scenes. You see, that video didn't go viral by accident. And that prediction wasn't a guess. It was constructed using a specific psychological and analytical framework that I use to filter signal from noise. A lot of you asked me, how did you have so much conviction when everyone else was scared? Today, I am going to answer that. I am going to deconstruct the exact strategy I used to write that script. I'm going to show you the hooks, the emotional triggers, and the visual anchors that allowed us to see the breakout before the banks did. This is not a financial update. This is a masterclass in market psychology. Because if you understand how I built that argument, you won't just profit from this trade. You will be able to spot the next one yourself. We are going to break down the code of a perfect prediction. Most channels treat you like an audience member. I treat you like an insider. And insiders need to know how the sausage is made. We are going to look at the 6 elements that made that video and that trade unstoppable. If you are ready to see the blueprint, I need you to hit the like button right now. We are creating a new breed of investor on this channel, the architect. Let's break the glass. The first pillar of the strategy we used is what I call the fear versus math filter. When I wrote that script, the sentiment on silver was terrible. Analysts were downgrading it. The recession fears were everywhere. If I had listened to the headlines, I would have sold. But I didn't listen to the headlines. I looked at the math. Here is the rule: fear is loud. Math is quiet. The headlines were screaming market crash, but the math in Shanghai was whispering inventory deficit. Our script worked because we ignored the scream and amplified the whisper. We identified the Shanghai premium, the fact that physical metal was trading higher in China than in New York. That wasn't an opinion. That was a number. And numbers don't lie, only people do. Now, let's get one thing straight. I am not a financial advisor, I don't have a Wall Street license, and I don't sit in a glass tower. I am just a guy who is willing to do the research that the mainstream media is too lazy to do. But here is the empowering truth. If I can sit here, dig through the data, and bring out amazing stuff like this for you, then you can win too. You don't need a degree. You just need to be willing to turn off the TV and turn on your brain. You can benefit from my obsession with the truth. But you have to be in the loop to get the signal. This is the best time to make sure you are locked in. If you made money on this move, or if you just appreciate the research that went into it, subscribe right now. Don't be a tourist, be an insider. Because the next opportunity is already forming in the data, and I'm not going to whisper it, I'm going to shout it. So, the first step of the blueprint is simple. Delete the news app. Look at the inventory reports. Look at the premiums. When the fear and the math disagree, bet on the math every single time. That is how we caught the $75 move. But spotting the trade is only half the battle. You have to remember it. And that brings us to the most powerful psychological tool in our arsenal, the visual anchor. This brings us to the second pillar, and this is where most investors fail. You can have the best data in the world, but if you cannot visualize it, you will panic when the volatility hits. The human brain is not designed to remember spreadsheets. It is designed to remember stories and images. That is why, in the last video, I didn't just tell you about paper derivatives versus physical allocations. That is boring. Your eyes would have glazed over. Instead, I gave you a visual anchor. I called the Western market a hologram. Do you remember that? I described a banker trying to pick up a silver bar and his hand passing right through it. That one image did more work than 50 pages of Goldman Sachs reports. Because the moment you visualized the hologram, you understood the risk. You understood that the price was fake. So when the price dipped 2 days later, you didn't panic. You just thought, oh, the hologram is flickering? This is the secret sauce of our research strategy. We don't just look for numbers, we look for the metaphor. When we saw the Shanghai inventory draining while New York prices stayed flat, we didn't see a divergence. We saw a dam burst. We saw pressure building behind a wall that was cracking. Once you see the dam, you don't bet on the wall holding. You bet on the water. This is how you need to start thinking if you want to be an architect. Don't just look at a chart and see a line. Ask yourself, what is the picture? Is it a coiled spring? Is it a game of musical chairs? Is it a burning building? If you can't draw the problem on a napkin, you don't understand the trade. The reason you held on to your silver through the volatility and the reason you are sitting on a massive profit today is because that hologram image locked your conviction in place. You weren't fighting the market. You were seeing through the illusion. But having the math and the image is still not enough. To truly capture a viral move, both in the algorithm and in the market, you need to master the pacing. You need to know when to push and when to pull. This is what I call the emotional roller coaster, and it is the only reason you watch that video until the very end. Now we get to the mechanics of attention. The reason most financial videos put you to sleep is that they are flat. They give you a list of facts in a monotone voice. But the video that predicted $75 wasn't a lecture, it was a thriller. We used a strategy called pulse pacing. If you go back and watch that script, you will notice a pattern. We never let you get comfortable. First, I gave you the logic, the supply data. This made you feel smart and secure. Then, immediately after, I hit you with the threat, the force majeure / the kill switch. This made you feel anxious and alert. Smart. Anxious. Smart. Anxious. We cycled these emotions every 60 seconds. Why? Because that is exactly what the market does. The market doesn't go up in a straight line. It tests you. It shakes you out. By building the script with microhooks and rising tension, we were actually training your nervous system for the trade itself. When I told you about the year-end liquidity crisis, I wasn't just scaring you. I was inoculating you against the volatility. So when the price swung wildly last week, you didn't sell. You recognized the feeling. You thought, this is the tension part of the script. The payoff comes next. This is the retention engineering that keeps you watching and keeps you holding. We structure the information like a story. The hero you slow, faces a villain the paper shorts, and has to overcome an obstacle, the manipulation, to get the reward $75. If I just said silver goes up, you would have clicked off. But because I showed you the conflict, you stayed for the resolution. And that is the lesson for your own research. Don't just look for good news, look for the conflict. Look for the struggle. Because the bigger the conflict between the physical supply and the paper price, the more violent the explosion will be when it resolves. We rode that roller coaster together, and that is why we arrived at the destination together. But there is one final psychological trigger we use to force the action. The most powerful tool to break hesitation is not information, it is choice. And that brings us to the binary trap. We have covered the math, the image, and the emotion. But there is one final barrier that stops people from making money. Analysis paralysis. In the modern world, you are drowning in data. You have 50 indicators on your chart. You have 100 pundits shouting at you. You have fear, greed, and confusion all fighting for the steering wheel. Most people freeze. They watch the opportunity fly by because they are waiting for one more confirmation. In the script that predicted $75, I didn't let you freeze. I used a psychological tool called the binary trap. Here is how it works. The brain hates complexity, but it loves a simple choice. I stripped away the noise and forced you to answer a single uncomfortable question. I didn't ask you, what do you think the RSI indicator implies for the 200-day moving average? That is a trap. That leads to hesitation. Instead, I asked you, if you bought a house but never got the keys, did you really buy it? Yes or no? That question cut through the fog like a laser. It forced you to look at your portfolio and realize that unallocated paper silver was a lie. It wasn't a complex financial decision anymore. It was a binary choice. Option A, trust the paper, the lie. Option B, trust the metal, the truth. Once you saw it that clearly, the decision to buy physical was automatic. You didn't need courage, you just needed clarity. This is the secret to high conviction trading. You have to boil the thesis down to one binary trap. For silver, it was, can you print more physical atoms? No. Can they print more paper contracts? Yes. That's it. That is the entire trade. If they print, you win. If they don't, you hold. Because we simplified the battlefield, you were able to pull the trigger while the Wall Street algorithms were still trying to calculate the beta. The binary trap is what separates the architects from the victims. The victim gets lost in the nuance. The architect finds the yes or no that matters. And because you answered no to the paper illusion, you are sitting on a life-changing gain today. But the game isn't over. We have won the battle for $75, but the war for the future of money is just starting. And that brings us to the final piece of the puzzle, the next move. We have taken apart the engine, we have looked at the gears. Now you understand why we won. The $75 silver target wasn't a gamble. It was the inevitable result of applying fear versus math, visual anchors, and binary traps to a broken market. But here is the danger of a big win. Complacency. Most people will look at their account balance today, high-five themselves, and think the game is over. The game is never over. The market is a living, breathing machine that is constantly trying to take that money back from you. The hologram we exposed in the silver market is currently forming in 3 other sectors. I am seeing the exact same pattern, high fear, quiet math, and empty vaults, building in a completely different asset class right now. I am applying this exact framework to the new data. I am looking for the next visual anchor. I am looking for the next binary trap. And when I find it, I am going to bring it to you. Because as I said earlier, I am not a financial advisor. I am a researcher. But if I can spend 100 hours digging through the obscure data to find the signal and you can benefit from it, then we both win. That is the deal we have here. Take a moment to enjoy this win. You earned it. You stood your ground when the comments section called us crazy. You held on when the price dipped. You trusted the blueprint. And now you have the result. $75 silver is your proof of concept. It proves that you don't need to be a hedge fund manager to beat Wall Street. You just need to be an architect. You need to build your conviction on a foundation that cannot be shaken by a CNBC headline. So, here is your final instruction. Don't let this profit make you soft. Let it make you hungry. We have proved the system works. Now we are going to scale it. I am already writing the script for the next big anomaly. It makes the silver gap look small. If you want to be on the notification list when that video drops, you know what to do. Subscribe, turn on the bell, and leave the comment that defines this community. I am the architect. Tell the algorithm that you aren't here for the entertainment. You are here for the construction. The silver era has begun, but the next chapter is going to be even better. Stay sharp, stay stacked, class dismissed.